It was one of those moments that still plays in my mind, frame by frame, like a film I can't stop replaying even though I already know how it ends. The office smelled faintly of burnt coffee and stale air conditioning when I first sketched the idea. I remember leaning over my notepad, scribbling diagrams, connecting dots that no one else seemed to notice, my fingers smudged with ink, because I was so caught up in the current of it that I didn't care about the mess. It was mine, born from weeks of late nights, trial runs, and discarded drafts. The kind of idea that didn't just feel clever but necessary, the kind that could shift the company in a direction people hadn't even considered. I had stayed behind when the lights dimmed and the office floor turned silent, refining it, convincing myself that if there was ever a time to stand out, this was it. And then he stole it. He was the kind of man who knew how to float just close enough to your orbit without ever showing the effort it took to hover there. Always charming, always smiling in that smooth way that didn't quite reach his eyes. He had a way of making people lean in when he spoke, as if he carried secrets no one else could quite access. He'd stop by my desk under the pretense of asking about minor details, his voice casual, but I could feel him watching, listening too closely, noticing the scraps of paper and the half-built drafts I left scattered when I was too tired to tidy them away. The day he presented my idea, I sat in the conference room with my notes folded neatly in my lap. The projector hummed, the blue glow washing over the table as he clicked through slides that looked too familiar, too polished in a way that made my heart sink. Every word he spoke was a reflection of the sleepless nights I had spent piecing it together, yet coming from his mouth it was dressed differently, sharper, coated in confidence that made the audience lean forward. He smiled when he revealed the core of it, the very heart of what I had built, as though it had sprung from his mind in one elegant burst of genius. My chest burned as I listened to the applause that followed, the nods of approval, the quick praise from upper management. I gripped my pen so tightly it snapped in half, ink bleeding onto my fingers. For a moment, I wanted to shout, to stand up and strip away his mask in front of everyone, to tell them the truth of who had really built the foundation he was standing on. But instead, I sat silent. My voice stuck somewhere between my throat and my pride, strangled by the fear that even if I spoke, no one would believe me. Afterward, when the crowd dispersed and the smell of victory still lingered around him, he caught my eye across the hallway. He didn't wink or smirk. He didn't need to. His silence was worse, an unspoken acknowledgement that he knew what he had done and that I would do nothing. The promotion came quickly, of course. A corner office, a congratulatory email from the CEO, a raise that put him in a different tax bracket. People congratulated him like he'd won a marathon, not realizing he'd cut the course halfway through. And me? I was left standing in the same fluorescent glow, my desk cluttered with papers no one would ever see, my idea now belonging to someone else's story. But the strangest part wasn't the theft itself. It was how the world moved on, how quickly everyone forgot that I had been working on something, how my silence erased me from the narrative altogether. I realized then that the corporate ladder isn't always climbed rung by rung. Sometimes it's stolen. Sometimes it's built on the backs of others who are too stunned to scream. I wish I could say I learned something noble from it, that I rose above, that I kept creating because no thief could take the core of my imagination. But the truth is messier. Every time I sit down to work, there's a shadow at my shoulder, a voice that whispers, "Why bother?" when someone else can just take it. And yet, I keep showing up, keep scribbling, keep bleeding ideas onto pages no one might ever know are mine, because the only thing worse than being robbed of your creation is letting them take away your will to create it all. That's the part he can't steal, not really. He may have taken the promotion, the office, the applause. But he'll never know the cost of carrying a stolen crown, the weight of building a legacy on lies. And me? I may be invisible in the story he tells about himself, but deep down, I know the truth of how it all began, in the silence of an empty office, with ink on my fingers and an idea that was never his to claim. The office at night was a different world, a place that almost seemed to breathe differently once the chatter and footsteps vanished. The hum of the vending machine, the faint clack of the janitor's mop bucket rolling down the hallway, the soft whir of the computers left in sleep mode, it was in that quiet that I thrived. That was where the idea came alive, when the daytime noise couldn't drown it out. I remember sitting at my desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, staring at a mess of notes and diagrams spread across the desk like puzzle pieces. My pulse quickened with each connection I made, each piece of insight that slotted into place. I knew even then that this wasn't just another project pitch. It was something bigger, something that could change how the company functioned. I guarded it like a secret. Or at least I thought I did. But I should have noticed the way he lingered. He'd stroll by at the end of the day, leaning casually against my cubicle wall, that practiced half-smile curling his lips as if he were simply there to chat. He was good at making his curiosity sound harmless. "What's keeping you so late? Another one of your projects?" He'd tease, his eyes always darting to the papers I hadn't covered fast enough. I would laugh it off, dismiss it, sometimes even show him a harmless scrap just to deflect attention. I never thought he'd piece together the rest. I underestimated him, or maybe overestimated his decency. The betrayal unfolded slowly, like a knife pressing in before the sudden twist. The day of the presentation, I walked into the conference room with my binder in hand, ready to finally show what I had been working toward for weeks. But the air shifted the moment I saw his name glowing on the projector screen. My heart stuttered, then dropped, as his voice filled the room. Confident, smooth, rehearsed. The slides were clean, polished in a way that made it clear he had spent time reformatting, dressing up what he had taken so it gleamed as though it had always belonged to him. Each word sliced at me. Each graph, each bullet point, each phrasing so close to my own notes that I could almost hear my voice echoing beneath his. And the room? They ate it up. Nods of approval, pens scribbling notes, senior executives exchanging glances that said, "This is it. This is the one we've been waiting for." I couldn't breathe. My fingers dug into the edge of my chair as if anchoring myself could keep me from standing up, from screaming the truth into the room. But all I managed was silence. My throat tightened, my pride bound me, and my fear kept me quiet. Because in that moment, I knew the cruel truth. The corporate ladder rewards the ones who look the part, who can charm the room, who can steal an idea and sell it better than the person who bled to create it. After the meeting, I stood in the hallway, binder still heavy in my hand, watching as people clapped him on the back and congratulated him. His laughter was loud, confident, the sound of someone who had already claimed victory. Then he caught my gaze across the room. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His look was calm, steady, almost daring me to say something. And I didn't. The announcement came days later. His promotion was splashed across company emails, his new office perched high above the rest of us, like a monument to his triumph. Everyone congratulated him, as though he had built something from nothing. Meanwhile, I sat at my desk under the same dull fluorescent lights, listening to the murmur of people who no longer remembered that I had been working on something at all. The hardest part wasn't losing the promotion. It wasn't even the stolen idea. It was the erasure. The way my work dissolved as if it had never existed. The way silence erased me from the story. But sometimes, late at night, when the office quiets again and the world seems to exhale, I let myself imagine a different ending. One where I stood up, voice steady, binder open, exposing him for what he was in front of everyone. One where the truth weighed more than his charm. I replayed that version too, frame by frame. And yet, here I am, still showing up, still sketching out new ideas when no one is watching. Because maybe he can steal a promotion. Maybe he can steal applause. But what he cannot steal is the current inside me. The restless pull to create, to imagine, to build something new. That current is mine, and as long as I follow it, there will always be another idea. He may have climbed one rung higher, but he'll never escape the shadow of the truth. And I'll never stop chasing the next thing worth building, even if the world never knows it was me who built it. In the weeks that followed his promotion, the office shifted in small but unmistakable ways. His voice now carried differently when he spoke. People leaned in, laughed louder at his jokes, nodded more quickly when he made even the most trivial suggestion. Power has a strange gravity. It pulls others into its orbit whether they realize it or not. And I watched it happen every day. I watched colleagues who used to pass his desk without a glance now linger there, eager to be noticed, eager to be aligned with the rising star. Meanwhile, my desk grew quieter. Fewer people stopped by. My inbox shrank from steady trickles of collaboration to little more than task lists and perfunctory updates. It was as if I'd been shifted into the background of a photograph. Still there, still visible if you looked closely, but no longer the focus. Invisible in plain sight. I tried to bury myself in work, telling myself that another idea would come, something even stronger, something undeniable. But every time I put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, I felt the weight of him hovering at the edge of my thoughts. The image of his confident stride into the conference room, the sound of his voice stealing the rhythm of my own, the look he gave me afterward like a warning. Don't even try. It gnawed at me. Some nights I couldn't sleep, lying awake replaying every detail, imagining what might have happened if I'd spoken up. Would they have believed me? Or would I have been dismissed as bitter, jealous, unprofessional? That's the trap of corporate life. The moment you accuse someone higher up, you risk being the one who's ruined, not them. Still, a seed of anger began to grow inside me, small and quiet at first, then more insistent. It wasn't the kind of anger that explodes, it was the kind that smolders, the kind that sharpens over time, that turns into something colder, more deliberate. I began to watch him differently. I noticed how he worked, how often he leaned on others to do the heavy lifting, how rarely he came up with something truly his own. His charm bought him cover, but beneath it, he was hollow. His brilliance was only as bright as the people he stole it from. One evening, long after most of the office had cleared out, I wandered past his new corner office. Through the glass walls I saw him, feet propped on the desk, scrolling his phone with that same lazy smile. Not a single document open, not a trace of the urgency that kept me hunched over my desk night after night. The unfairness of it struck me like a physical blow, how he could climb without effort, while I sweated and bled over every rung. I pressed my palm against the cool glass of the hallway window and thought, what if I stopped letting him win? The thought lingered, dangerous and thrilling. Not to sabotage, not to destroy, but to outplay him. To take the one advantage he had used against me and turn it on him. If he thrived on stealing, then maybe I needed to stop leaving scraps behind. Maybe I needed to lock my work down, to build it in silence, in shadows, so that when it finally emerged, it would blindside him and everyone else who thought he was the genius. The idea of revenge didn't come as fire. It came as strategy. It came as patience. So I began again. Quietly, carefully, piece by piece, I started building something new. I erased my whiteboards at the end of every day. I carried my notes home instead of leaving them in drawers. I coded prototypes on a personal laptop no one knew I had. Every smile I offered him in the hallway, every polite nod in meetings, was just another mask. Beneath it, I was sharpening the blade of the next idea. And sometimes, when I caught his reflection in the glass of the office windows, I wondered if he could sense it, the shift, the quiet defiance blooming beneath my silence. Because here's the truth he doesn't know. The ladder he climbed may have gotten him to the top faster, but it was built on stolen rungs. And one day, when the foundation beneath him gives way, when his mask slips and there's nothing left for him to steal, he'll fall harder than anyone expects. And when that day comes, I'll be ready.